Reddit. Have you ever walked out on someone in the middle of a date? If yes, why? Met her through some chat room. Early 2000s. She lived one town over where I could reach within 30 minutes by train. Decided to go for it rather spontaneously. It was a Saturday afternoon with plenty of time to waste, so why not? Arrived at the station. She was pretty enough but had a rather wild look that I couldn't quite interpret. Ladies and gentlemen, until we left the train station it took almost 1.5 hours. She had exchanged pleasantries with every single addict hanging around the property. Train stations in German cities are Druckgasse hotspots, and asked if I could lend her 20 euros that she owed one of them. Told her I didn't carry cash. Might have been true. Don't remember. She got pee. Asked how I was supposed to pay for her dinner, to which I replied that I had briefly considered inviting her for dinner indeed, had never been discussed prior, and if so, intended to pay for it using my credit card. But that intention was finished then and there. Walked right back in and jumped on the next homeward bound train. They come in a 20 minutes frequency, and that's how I got a free tour of the Dortmund Central Station with all its corresponding lowlifes. Lucky enough my public transport pass covered the train fully, so I didn't waste anything but 3h of my life. Yeah, but you got an experience which resulted in a bunch of internet points. No, but I went on a date and called the girl the wrong name for 3 hours. She didn't correct me until she got in her car, then she sped off. Hard lesson, bro. I've told this story a few times here but I'll tell it again. So I picked up this girl for a date. As a preface, I was 18. First semester in college, and she was way out of my league. I mean, I was ready for a pop quiz on the Star Wars extended universe, and this girl Jenny, we'll call her, was all set for her nightly fugue of pills, alcohol, and techno dance club. So I picked Jenny up. She wants to go to her favorite club, so we go. At first I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool is this? Hot girl, cool club. Hello, new me at the club. She introduces me to her friends and that's pretty much the last I saw of Jenny. She's off dancing and each time I get close to dance with her she moves away and dances with someone else. So I ask her friends, hey, what's up with that, and they say, oh, she just wants to make sure you're interested. She just wants you to keep following her. Anyway, cut to the end. I tried to get close to her to tell her I was heading home but she kept sand crabbing away, so I just left her there and went home to watch reruns of TNG. Never heard from Jenny again. You made the better choice. It wasn't the middle of the date, more like I ended the date early. It had been a while since I had been in a relationship. I was just out of college and was seeing this guy who was into someone else. We had been hanging out a lot, though, so I thought maybe things would work out. I picked him up for a date to Jumbo Juice and a walk after. He was on his phone pretty much the entire time. I'd try to start conversations just to have them be shut down with one-worded replies. At one point, since he was on his phone anyway, I texted him, asking how he was doing. He looks at me with a what the frick look on his face, and I told him I was just trying to start a conversation. He promptly went back to his phone, Facebooking about a cloud in the sky that looked like a dragon. I like dragons. He could have pointed it out. I told him it was time for me to take him home and got no argument. BB text him. Facebook is worse than texting in some ways. Like, I could kind of see if they were talking get to a specific person. Then you know that person is more important to them. If they're just updating their status or whatever, you know that they're more important to themselves than you are. Met a girl online, messages me early in the day and is extremely charming and funny. Mentions she's having breakfast solo just a block or two from my house. Invites me to join her and we start chatting. Get some eggs as she announces that she just fought with her parents, who live on another continent, and is now cut off from her folks who support her financially. I play the white knight card and immediately offer to pay for breakfast. As I do so, she asks to come back to my place to use the Wi-Fi. We walk a block or two away, laughing and talking and discussing her life at one of the top 3 engineering schools internationally. I'm into her, she's obviously into me, and we spend the day in and out of bed at my house. Lovely long luxurious first date. Around 10 PM, we're having wine on my porch and she confesses to me that she's been living off the dating site we met on. Has been off her meds for 2 weeks BC, she can't afford them, and proposes that I'll let her live in my house for the next 8 months until she graduates. A totally stone cold proposition. I'm faced with the option of either kicking her out onto the street to make her way or trying to help in some way. Freaking out quietly, I casually ask her if I can play some music from her phone, find her parents' contact info, and have a call with her mom, who speaks almost no English, from my bathroom, a fugitive in my own house. Until I get the message across, we furtively coordinate a rescue plan over the next 2 days while she happily runs around my apartment, doing her best to be an ideal girlfriend. Third day, her uncle knocks and picks her up. Still don't know if I did the right thing. TLDR, a woman living on a dating website became my live-in GF until her family recovered her. I have repressed this memory for so long and now I'm ready to share it with the world. This guy asks me out on a date and I'll pretty much give anyone at least one chance if they have the balls to ask me out, so I say yes. He picks me up and says, I was thinking we can just hang out at my house. But don't freak out, I'm kind of rich, okay? So we pull up to his house, which is actually his parents' house. We walk in and immediately I can see where this date is going. His mom swarms me and tells me how beautiful I am, and his dad is asking me questions. My date, let's call him Dylan, starts dipping his finger in a candle on the table that he just blew out. Dad starts yelling, Dylan, goddammit, did you take your fricking Zol off today? You're a fricking embarrassment, boy. And Dylan is yelling, shut the frick up, Dad, you don't know what you're fricking talking about. They swear at each other for a good 10 minutes until he tells me we should go downstairs and I follow him. His basement is nice and has a huge gaming setup. At this point I wasn't out of the nerd closet. All of my friends and guys it dated thought I was just a prissy girly girl, so I was struggling to contain my excitement when he asks if I want to play a game with him. He gestures to the case and says pick whatever you want. His choices of games are crap, but I pick COD. He looks at me and says, I don't want you to mess up my KD ratio. Wait, what? What? Then he says, how about I play and you watch? So I chuck Skyrim at his head and sit on my phone for an hour as he aimlessly wanders around not knowing what he's doing. His dad appears later. Dylan, go get us some Taco Bell. We will even pay for your lady friend here. Wow, how generous. We drive to Taco Bell, which is about a 15 minutes walk from my house, and he turns to me and says, I'm not freaking joking. This came out of his mouth. I just want to let you know, I've seen a lot of pee, so don't freak out like yours is something special. I think I blacked out for a few seconds with rage. I looked at him and said, you won't be seeing my pee, and then got out of the car and walked home. TLDR, guy brags about being rich, fights with family about his ADHD, makes me watch him play video games like crap, and then tells me if he sees my pee it probably won't be a new experience. Can I ask how old he was? Because I can't imagine anything older than 13/14, but that's not old enough to drive, so it's got to be older. Once, she was one of my co-worker's friend's daughter. We met for lunch and she was incredibly horribly rude to the waiter. After she dropped a racial slur about him, I got up, paid the bill, apologized to the waiter, and left. Good move, dude. Never trust people that are rude to wait staff. It's like they know for a fact it will lead to crappy service and spit in fire food, but they can't help it. Fire dong genes just kickin' and they have to be the reason for someone else's bad day. I was telling her about how my dad was adopted and that my grandpa is black. She said, wait, your grandpa is when? X post from another thread. Would have bailed but instead convinced my roommate to come to the same bar so she could see firsthand what I was working with. First ever OkCupid date. Guy shows up still talking on his phone, looks me up and down, motions for us to go into the bar restaurant. It was a Lebanese place and he declares I don't really like African food. He continues to tell me how lucky I am to land a date with him, and somewhere down the monologue I hear the words 9/11 musical. He had written a 9/11 musical. It was a comedy. I also paid because he was a feminist. Brooklyn. Sounds like a freaking GTA character. Not me. I started dating my husband in high school, so yeah, my mom dated on and off for a while after she and my dad divorced, and left a few bad dates. We had a code. She would act like her phone was on silent and I had called, call me back, and check on me. I'd tell her I wasn't feeling well, scared of being at our house alone at night, some BS, and she'd have to come home. I think the two that stick out the most to me are: guy meets her at a restaurant, humming what we later assume was his very own theme music, and proceeds to speak only in third person like he is a narrator to his own life. She said he would theatrically pull out his chair while singing Ba Dum Da Da and then proceed to say something like, Clive pulled his chair out from the table, where he plans to sit for dinner. Tonight's choice is Italian food, which he hopes does not give him indigestion. I told mom later that I would have probably gone on more dates, just for the laughs. She lasted about an hour and realized he was going to talk like that the entire date. She paid her half of the meal and came home. The other was a man who obviously lied about his age on his dating profile online, and was actually closer to my grandpa's age, 20 years older than my mom. They met at a restaurant, where he ordered her meal for her because women are to be seen and not heard. She let it slide. Afterwards, he asked if she could drive him, in her car, to such and such store. Turns out it was the local makeout point, and he had brought some Barry White CD. She said he started doing this awkward striptease in the front seat of her not so roomy Mustang, and getting mad she wasn't jumping across the car after him, but was laughing her butt off instead. She dropped him off at his truck and told him to have a nice night. He continued calling and asking for a second date for a few weeks. I'm losing it just picturing Clive pause, look at her, and dramatically say, indigestion. When I was 20, I met a beach cop and he asked me out to dinner. When I got to the restaurant, he introduced me to his mother, who he had also invited. I ordered a drink, excused myself to the restroom and walked out the door. Him and his mom probably talked crap about you the rest of the night. I didn't walk out in the middle, more like on my way to it. Met her online and we chatted for a while. She told me about how her ex-husband fricked her BF and they ran away together. It actually explained a lot. One night we agreed to meet up after I got off work. The entire day she called me baby, said she loved me, and texted non-stop. If I didn't answer her texts right away, she would blow up my phone with calls. She knew where I was. Then during the last 2 hours of my shift, she would count down. Only 2 hours, an hour 45, hour 30 and so on till the last 20 minutes, then it was every minute. Finally, when my shift was over, she texted me 3 or 4 times if I was on my way. I finally had enough and told her no, I wasn't and it wasn't going to happen. Then she starts with the pictures of her crying. I had to fricking ghost her for 2 days before she stopped. I felt horrible and I hate to hurt people, but there's no amount of shame I'm willing to feel to avoid that amount of crazy. I was on a date with a really nice and pretty girl. Really enthusiastic and friendly waiter came up to us and asked, what can I get you two beautiful people? She gave him a look that would turn milk sour with a nice frick off. We're talking here. That happy waiter was one of my best friends and the owner of the restaurant. He come to offer us free drinks. I told her to be gone when I came back from the kitchen to apologize to my friend. She was, someone who isn't nice to the waiter is not a nice person. Someone who isn't nice to the waiter is not a nice person. This is a simple and easy rule for everyone who is dating to live by. If your date can't treat service people with respect who are in a situation where they could be abused, no or low tip, verbally abused but can't really argue back because they need the job, you do not want that person in your life. Not a date per se, but rather a long weekend with an ex-girlfriend. We had met in a chat room, then finally agreed to meet face to face. I was working a lot of overtime but could get an occasional afternoon free. She was working at a retail store and living with her parents while trying to pay off student loans. She made it very clear that no hanky-panky would happen until she felt really comfortable with the guy. She was nice, so this didn't bother me. We had many dates. She spent the night at my place several times, always with me on the couch. After a couple months she said she'd never been to Las Vegas and would love to go for her birthday. Working overtime allowed me to splurge on her birthday, so being a gentleman I paid for 2 airplane tickets and 3 nights at the Tropicana. I worked 10 hours Thursday, then picked her up and drove us to the airport. We got on the plane and knowing she was expecting to be partying all night, I fell asleep for a couple hours. We checked into the hotel, then went to the casino. Sometime after midnight I told her I had to go to bed. Despite getting a nap, she's pee and tells me to go be an old man. I wake up Friday to find her in the other bed, naked, with a one night stand. So yay. I checked out of the hotel, told the front desk about the entire mess. No refund, but they did comp last night's dinner plus drinks. Then waited at the airport for a standby seat. Got home in time to work a few hours on Friday. Got an email Saturday asking if screwing some random stranger meant we were through. Learned through a mutual friend much later that she got some itchiness from said random stranger. PS. Although the room was cancelled, she still had her airplane ticket back home. I'm not that big of an but. Nobody would have blamed you. Cancelling her ticket would be the next thing I'd do after cancelling the room. Had a date with my buddy's co-worker, set up by him. She was a triathlete, worked as a financial analyst for a big brokerage firm, and according to him, incredibly funny. We met for drinks and a bite to eat. Noticed after her first glass of wine she was getting flush and acting a bit off. After the second glass, she just went completely crazy town. Got loud, kind of manic. Some younger guy walked by wearing a Raiders shirt with a NY Giants hat, and she just went batshit on him. Make up your freaking mind. Are you a Raiders fan or a Giants fan? Guy was just trying to go the bathroom. Called him a P. Just unloaded on the guy. Challenged him to a fight, complete with the whole hands up what you gonna do B move. I stood up, gently shooed him towards the bathroom, threw $40 on the bar. Bill was $25 or so, and just turned around and walked out. Called my buddy to let him know he was no longer allowed to set me up with anyone. I went on a Tinder date a few months ago. The dude had seemed pretty cool via texts and whatnot, so I asked him if he wanted to meet me at a local place in Austin. He said yeah. We agreed on 6. So I got there early and putzed around for a while. Had a couple drinks, etc. at the bar. Paged through Reddit and read some of my ebook. 7 rolls around and the dude hasn't shown. At this point I'm kind of enjoying myself with a cocktail and my book, so I decide to chill. Like a 7:45 he shows up, doesn't apologize, and immediately tries to make out with me. I kind of laughed it off and we got a few drinks and started talking. A few rounds in, I notice he hasn't opened a tab, so I watch what he does when he orders. He freaking gets a Mexican martini and jerks a thumb at me, as in, this one is on her. I hadn't opened a tab, but the place was slow, so the bartender was kinda rolling with it since I'd paid up thus far. Dude had racked up like 4 drinks assuming I was paying, after he was late, and to make things weirder he was getting really gropey, talking about what he was going to do to me later and making creepy boob fetish comments. I excused myself to the bathroom, walked around the corner and booked it to my car. A while later he texts, "You didn't even see my penis yet," followed by whatever thanks for the drinks. I had my debit card in my wallet still. Little did he know. He texted several hours later that he met a chick at the bar and they were hitting it off, so frick me, buying her drinks courtesy of me. I assume he thought. Then a while later a string of angry texts about how he'd racked up like a couple $100 and I was a freaking C and he couldn't pay for it, etc. Actually demanded. In broken but drunk text, I show back up and take care of his tab because I stood him up. I don't mind picking up the tab, but at least ask or offer to help first. And FFS, don't try to pick up chicks on my dime after you were creepy. I'm actually super picky about being late. If you more than 10 minutes, no thanks. I met a guy for a first date once at his house. I know, bad idea. We had a few pieces of cold pizza. Then he said, "Want to watch a movie in my room? Home Alone is on at 7 Okay, weird first date movie choice but fine. He leads me to a pull-out couch in his bedroom, and on the first commercial break he asks, "May I be so lucky as to have a kiss?" I felt so awkward and uncomfortable, but we made out for a while. He was a terrible kisser. The final straw was when he took out his very small penis and tried to jerk it next to me. I just got up and left. Freaking weirdos on a Cupid. Yes, the waitress made a mistake on her meal, and my date blew up and treated her like crap. But that's an absolute deal breaker for me. I ended the date halfway through and apologized to both the waitress and the manager after my date left for the night. They calmed me a drink and thanked me for being cool about it. The old phrase "how he treats his mother is how he'll treat you" is very true. Yet if you're meeting the mom, it's already too late, so servers are a great substitute. Yes, it was a first date, and we went to a party where he knew everyone and I knew no one. He went from ignoring me to, I think, completely forgetting I was there, so I left. We had taken my car. I went back to my dorm and hung out for a while, and went back when I knew the party was ending, because it was a rented venue and everyone had to leave. My friend who was a bartender set me up with a guy. I was sitting at the bar and turned to see him coming in through the back door. He made it about halfway and stumbled and fell over a chair. He was completely wasted. I told him, no, turned my back to him and the date was over in about 15 seconds. That's weird, bartenders usually know only the most high caliber people. He said I should throw away all my books because they take up space and I don't need them anyway. Plus, women shouldn't work full time or have careers. Bye. Found Bell. My sister recently shared her worst experience with me. She met a guy online and decided to go out on a first date. Guy said that they would go to a friend's place who was having a party. Turns out this party is actually a swingers party, and you must bring a date to participate. Upon arrival, the guy dumped her on a couch and then proceeded to focus on a cute guy there. He was trying to get a threesome going with him and his wife, or maybe a one-on-one. She never found out. She left. Got drinks with a girl I met at a bar a week before. She invited me to a party at one of her friend's places downtown afterwards, so I went along. Well, an hour later I rounded a corner and found her with her tongue down another guy's throat in the hallway. I just walked out and never talked to her again. Honestly, I wasn't even that mad. I went and joined my friends at a bar, told them the story, and got a couple free rounds from the cute bartender who overheard. Ended up hooking up with her a couple weeks later. The bartender, though, she sounds like a catch. If we're dating you can't have male friends. Met him through male friend. PFFT. Okay, we're not dating. In his favor, he showed up at my home a while later and told me how immature that was and apologized how messed up that was. Now, I get some folks don't agree with opposite sex friends and if you both agree more power to you. But if you meet someone through opposite sex friends, that's not liable to fly. I was super confused there for a second because I thought you meant there was an app called Male Friend. So here we go. I met a girl one night at a bar. She was blonde, well endowed, fairly attractive, and seemed very nice. She was there with her boyfriend guy she was dating, but they ended up having some fight and he bailed on her. She said it was over. My friends and I gave her a ride home that night. I even did the gentlemanly thing, letting her wear my coat because it was cold, lady, and we exchanged numbers. Several days later we got together for drinks at a friend's party. This girl and her sister came down from the smaller town they were from for it. A smaller, rather redneck town. She did disclose to me that she used to be a stripper, but it didn't faze me at all, although it was hilarious because she had one of the most stereotypical stripper names imaginable. In fact, at this time in my early 20s, all I could think was holy crap, I'm going to hook up with a big-titted stripper. After a few drinks, however, and some off to the side making out, she started talking about her stepbrother is also named Wycliffe. She said he's currently incarcerated on felony possession and conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine, but that they've been in love for years, and that they were getting married when he finally got out. She made comments like I know he's my stepbrother, and that's kinda weird, but love is love and can't be stopped. I nodded and smiled, trying to be polite. She then said something about loving my cologne, and wanted to know if she could take my shirt home with her to sleep with, and something about casting some sort of spell on it. Right around this time, one of my good friends pulled me to the side, saying he needed to talk to me. He had been talking to the sister, who had asked if he wanted to smoke a foil. She said she gets it for free because they live with their aunt and uncle who cook it. I quickly gave him the abridged version about the stepbrother and amateur witchcraft, and we both agreed to bail. After some subterfuge, we left those two crazy bee alone at a stranger's party where they didn't know anyone else. A couple months later, the girl I almost hooked up with ended up pregnant by a guy who lived down the street from the party, who just so happened to be there that night. I dodged a bullet, a crazy, loving, stepbrother freaking, magical bullet. I'm usually not okay with people bailing on dates, but when the comes out it's perfectly okay to bounce. Well, not really in the middle of a date, it's more of in the middle of sex. Been dating this bloke for about 3 weeks. I wasn't really that attracted to him, but okay. He's a nice bloke, so why not give him a chance, right? So we continued to date. I noticed that he tends to be clingy as frick, but okay. Maybe if I explained to him that I can't text him 24/7 or go out on dates with him 7 days a week because I have to work, he'd understand. So the first time we slept together, I was on top of him, riding him. A few seconds of that, he started going on and on about how I'd be the perfect mum for our future kids, and how his parents will be visiting later that night to meet me, and how I'd be meeting his mates that week. He also pointed out that we could start looking for engagement rings that would suit my taste. I stopped riding him, put on my knickers and clothes, and walked out of there. He was too shocked, or frisky, to realize what was happening. But nope. Don't give me a fright like that when I have been upfront about my commitment issues and I told you that I don't want to rush things. I also blocked him off my phone on my way home, so I'm not sure if he tried contacting me after that. Perfect mid-coitus conversation. So my parents are coming to town this evening. I've posted this before, but I took a girl out. We'd been friends a while and thought we'd try and see how things go. Busy food place. She was getting impatient, but I remarked they looked pretty understaffed and hey, we aren't in a rush. Conversation was going well and we definitely clicked, but something was off. She rocked back, stared at this young male server and clicked her fingers at him 3 times, loudly, then just proceeded to act rude. I tried to explain to her why I found her behavior abhorrent, but she told me I was being stuck up and we wouldn't see these people again, so who cares. I feigned a walk to the toilet just after starters and fricked off home. I regret nothing. I picked up a friend who bailed early. She was trying the whole online dating thing. Met a guy for a movie. The theater was just down the street from her app, so she walked, and then after he asked her to go get a late night dinner. Since she walked there, he drove them. He took her to IHOP. My friend, while she, though it was a weird choice, was perfectly fine with this, even though we live in a city with lots of good late night options. But hey, food is food. She tells me the guy is the absolute worst. Rude to the wait staff. Ask a million questions about the food. He talks constantly about who knows what. She tries to interject here and there, but he just steamrolls over her. She just decides to wait it out patiently and nods along with whatever he is saying. The final straw though, he says, "You know, you're a very pretty woman. I can't believe a girl like you agreed to go on a date with me. And believe me, if it wasn't for my ADHD medication, I'd be rock hard right now." She smiled and politely excused herself to the bathroom and walked out the front door. Called me and I came and picked her up about 3 or so blocks from said IHOP. The time I got naked manned. I had been talking to this guy on OKC for a while, then texting, and he seemed completely normal. So, one night he invites me over to hang out with him and his roommate when I got off work, just to chill. I had just worked a 15-hour shift, so I was tired and smelled like Red Lobster, but I went anyway because he was persistent. So, I get there and he's nice enough. Asks if I've ever seen How I Met Your Mother, which was a no. He goes into the kitchen to grab a drink, and then calls me in to get one too. When I walk in, he's butt naked doing the Captain Morgan pose, flaccid dong blowing in the wind. I've never ran out of a place quicker. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.